if you're a highly paid professional, you're making money. You're going to have enough by the time you're done, but you just have to figure out that balance now, because someday you're not going to have the opportunities that you have in terms of your health and in terms of your ability to do things with people that you love. And it's just important to take that time. I read recently a book by Bill Perkins, Die with Zero, and it really hit hard. Just that, there are certain times in your life where you can do things, and then there will be certain times when you're not just going to be able to do that anymore. And it's important to understand what your future goals are and how that plays into what you're doing now. And sometimes it's a little sobering. I mean, you just have a limited amount of time.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul M.D. podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable, real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Today's guest is Dr. Gelerie Stenbakken, a practicing anesthesiologist, mom, and real estate investor who, alongside her husband, built a portfolio of long and short-term rentals that gave her the freedom to practice medicine on her own terms. I'm so excited to share this story with you guys, so let's go. Gelerie, welcome to the show. I'm so excited. I'm ready to just jump into this conversation because this is exactly why we have this show. What you guys are doing, what you and your husband Eric are doing is so exciting, and I'm excited to share it with the guests. So thank you for coming here. Thank you for giving us your time, and tell us a little bit about Gelerie.
Okay, well, thank you, Brett, for having me on this podcast. I'm excited to share what I know. I'm an anesthesiologist. I've been practicing for over 22 years now, and I've been doing anesthesia, and I absolutely enjoy what I do. But I also realized at the time when I first got started that I cannot be continually doing 70 to 80-hour weeks. And so we just did a mindset pivot and decided to start a secondary stream of income. And so in 2010, we started investing in real estate. Initially was long-term rentals, and then we moved on to short-term rentals. And so now I'm at a point where I'm financially independent with that. And so we're just keeping our investments going and seeing where things go from there.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that. Not only the medical journey, but the journey into real estate as well, too. Now, you mentioned a mindset pivot in 2010 going into real estate. What do you mean by mindset pivot?
Well, we were, I was just working as a physician, as an anesthesiologist in Colorado, and my husband was doing fee-for-service as a videographer and photographer, and we just had our second child, and we were kind of starting our mid-careers, or just beginning my career, actually, and I thought, well, is this all that there is? Do I just keep working until I'm, 70 or 65 and then retire? And at that point, we thought, I don't think we could do this fee-for-service forever for full-time. I mean, he was carrying around pretty heavy gear, and we just thought there's might be something else out there that we need to look into. And we just happened to be inspired by a real estate agent that we came in contact with, who was doing long-term rentals. And also we played a game. It was called Cash Flow by Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh yeah.
About the rat race. And we played this game, and you get your paycheck and you buy all the doodads and you do these things and you have to take care of your kids. And then, but there's more to that. And if you got out of the rat race, if you actually had a secondary stream of income, you could get out and have more financial freedom. And that is basically what made us think, let's do this thing. Let's try real estate investing. And so that's how we started. we bought, that was in 2010. So the market was pretty good for buyers, and we bought our first long-term rental, and it was it was a good thing. I mean, it wasn't generating a lot of income, but that started the whole thing.
Very, very interesting. The cash flow game. So for the listeners who haven't played the cash flow game, it comes from what some people refer to as the Purple Book, Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's awesome. They have a kid version. And that mindset shift that's happening then is that ability to separate time from money, understanding assets and liability. Yep. What's putting cash into my pocket, what's taking cash out of my pocket. That game is so awesome for that. And that book as well, too. But it's like the same epiphany that I had, Gelerie, when I learned that I could buy a house, I could have a mortgage for it, and the tenant could pay me, and it's like mind blowing. I still get goosebumps like thinking about that.
Yep.
It's so important. Now it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right?
No, it is not.
Yeah, so there's the selling point of the passive investors of termites, tenants, and toilets, and all of those joyful things in between. But it's the foundation, it's the start, it's the mindset shift that you were talking about. So you started with a long-term rental, and it sounded like it maybe was not cash flowing at first. Probably had some learning opportunities at that moment. And a lot of people refer to this as tax or tuition. When you are building those first pieces. What was the decision? I mean, 2010, there wasn't a lot of short-term going around, but what was it that drove you from long-term to short-term? Like, explain us that transition for you.
So we started doing short-term rentals in 2016. So there was quite a bit of a gap there. Basically, we ended up with several long-term rentals, and they were doing just fine. They were cash flowing, but I did have a health scare in 2014. I had a breast cancer scare, and so I did have to go through surgery for that, but I didn't end up having to do chemotherapy, and I actually am doing quite well. Actually, awesome. On the 8th, it was 11 years cancer-free.
Awesome.
So,
congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. And at that point, I mean, we were already thinking about, well, what else do we want in life? What's our future? And, but after that, we started thinking, okay, are there other things we want to do on our, kind of like our bucket list? What have we always wanted to do, but haven't taken the time to do it? What is truly important to us? And are we making those things happen? And at the time, we started thinking about a vacation home. And my husband had always wanted a place off the grid, somewhere in the Colorado mountains. And I was just kind of like, I don't really want to compost my own waste, and I don't want to be off the grid. But then we came to I made a concession. I just said, okay, well, I would like a vacation home too. Let's get a vacation home, but I want it in the mountains, but I don't want it off the grid. And so we started looking at that, and we ended up looking in Grand Lake, and we met a couple there. We didn't stay at their place because it happened to be booked the weekend we were kind of looking to be there to try it out. But they told us that they were renting their property and as a vacation rental, and that they were making money. And that was all we needed to know. I mean, that they were making good money, cash flowing. And so we thought, well, we can do this. I mean, even if it supplemented our mortgage, even if it didn't pay all of it, if we were going to keep it anyway, what does it matter? That's just a positive. So that's how that started. And when we started generating income for that, then we realized we can really do a lot with this. And we ended up building a house in the same area. And then that kind of set in motion us buying several other properties that are vacation rentals.
That's awesome. And tell me a little bit about like your target. You started with long-term LTR, long-term rentals. Mm-hmm. What was your target for all in and the return on those?
Well, so when you say all in terms of the properties that we bought for long-term, those were done between 2010 and 2012. And so for each of those properties, we didn't pay any more than $200,000.
Okay.
So because it was a great market. And so when we did a down payment, that was, 20 to 25% for those. And really, whenever they used to say, oh, you need the 1% rule, that has to work for, otherwise it's not going to work. Well, we weren't doing the 1% rule. Maybe it was a 0.75% was what we were getting on those. But, we just needed to get in to the market, and that was in Colorado. And so we were doing that. And then once we got into the short-term rentals, obviously that was more expensive, but in terms of cash flow, it was more 10, 15%. And I don't think we've ever made like 20% cash flow, but at the same time, we also made sure we got some really nice properties that were a good value, but I wouldn't say were a steal.
So when I hear that too, there's an equity position, an equity multiple that you have in these, since you bought them in a good location, good properties, paying a little bit more, there's going to be more of an equity play than a cash flow play there.
Yeah,
and your peace of mind, if you buy a quality property, you maintain it well. There's a peace of mind that you have there as well, going through the rental process. So have you moved on completely from long-term? Are you only doing short-term? Where are you guys at right now?
Well, we actually had 5 long-term rentals. And at the time, in 2019, we actually sold 3 of them, mainly because we were having trouble with the municipality because they had some restrictions on occupancy that was not working out for us. We could, if we wanted to, illegally occupy more and charge a lot more, which people were doing in the city that we were in. But we were keeping the rules. We were following the rules. And so we were not getting as much revenue. And at that point, we were like, you know what? Let's just move the money someplace else. Where can we move this that will actually generate more income? So we actually sold 3 of them to buy a property in Tennessee. So basically it was like we sold 3 houses and bought a hotel. I mean, it's not really a hotel, but it was a 6-bedroom, property in Pigeon Forge. And
up in
you
the
look
mountains.
at it and yes, and so it has 2 decks and it just really looked, every time we showed it to our friends, they would be like, is that like a hotel or is that one house? But yeah, so we sold that, the 3 properties, and basically it kind of doubled our income. I mean, at the time we were just looking at the gross income and we're like, wow, it's actually double. And it did double. I mean, we did get double, but what we didn't know and didn't take into account is that, with vacation rentals, it's a little bit higher of expenses for that. Yeah. And so it wasn't exactly double the income across the board, but it was still better than what we were doing for long-term rentals. And so then after that, we ended up buying 3 more short-term rentals. So that's kind of where we are now, just maintaining those.
And did you do a 1031 exchange when you sold those other properties, or did you just pay the capital gains? Nice.
Oh, no.
How was that process?
It actually was pretty smooth. We actually 1031 2 properties, and then we sold one just outright and paid the capital gains, which wasn't too bad, but that was very handy to be able to do that. And it's nice when you have people who are familiar with that process and you just hire them to handle it for you. And so it was a good thing.
That escrow piece where they are collecting and holding the funds and just giving you information on how it can be titled, how much cash you have to put into it, the loan amount, all of that stuff. It is definitely very, very helpful. And along with not paying the capital gains, you also don't have to recapture the depreciation that you had taken on that property. So there's definitely some great points to do that. Interesting enough, we're selling a property right now, and we hadn't done a cost segregation on it yet. So what we're going to do is we'll run the cost seg. Even though we're selling it now, we'll still run the cost seg to get as much depreciation out of it as possible. And we're still doing the 1031. So might as well pull that depreciation out.
That's awesome.
And then 1031 to roll it into the next property for sure.
That's great.
So this short-term piece, and I have in my notes here that you guys had not only with some health challenges, but you had some contractor challenges too, right? Tell us a little bit about that. Was that in the short-term venue, or is that on a personal home, or what happened?
No, so it was a short-term rental. It's also in Tennessee, and we had already had 3 properties that were there in Tennessee, and we came across a deal that we thought was just so good, and it obviously was too good to be true. So we ended up we contracted with him to build a 5-bedroom indoor pool cabin. And it was kind of touch and go at first, and we were having difficulties with negotiating how we were going to build this property, but eventually it went through. And they kept saying, oh, well, we got this done. And so then we would pay them. But then at one point they just stopped. They just didn't, they basically abandoned the build, and we had to just reevaluate where we were and thought, are we going to actually get them to finish this? Are they going to complete it? And we realized they were not going to complete it. They kept asking for money, but they weren't doing the job. And so we fired them. And then we realized that they actually hadn't paid some of the vendors. They actually didn't get a permit on the property. And so it was disaster. But we worked through it. We actually found another builder who finished it up for us. And that's the thing. I mean, sometimes it just doesn't go well. There are some things that just don't go perfectly. You plan as best you can and you move on with a project, and it did not work out. But we actually completed it, and it cost us probably about $500,000 more than we thought it was going to cost. Yeah. And so it really set us back last year. That I think that if it had happened to someone who had not had the reserves that we had and had not had the portfolio that we had, that could have been an issue with bankruptcy. But we were able to just basically move things around with our portfolio and got some mortgages on our other properties, and were able to weather that. And then we ended up selling it, because although we could have kept it, it would have taken so long to start cash flowing it that it just made better sense to just sell it and put the funds into one of our other properties. Yeah.
There's something here called return on equity. When we're looking at a portfolio, how much capital we have wrapped up into an asset in order for it to return. So there was probably a lot of equity captured in this, stuck in this, and the returns weren't worthy of that equity. So very interesting. And as I'm listening to this, coming from the builder world, it's different when we're buying and renovating, depending on the scope, versus developing or building new. It's a whole different world. Awesome that you guys got through this. I'm just thinking of some things for the listeners. If you're out there doing this, one of the things, obviously, confirming licenses, confirming general liability insurance, confirming work comp insurance, making sure you're listed as additional interest on these policies means that the policies are update, making sure that they're continuously updated. But then through the build process too, Gelerie, there's these things called waiver of liens. You're probably doing on sworn statements so making sure that you're receiving these waiver of liens, partial waiver of liens, stating that these contractors have been paid as you're paying the GC. Because what's crazy, you're paying that GC, the general contractor, you're giving them money, and you're just, he's going to pay that person. Well, you're still on the line, because if that person doesn't get paid, and the contractor is a licensed contractor, they can put a mechanical lien on your property. So you may have paid the general contractor, but the subcontractor can still put a lien on your property. That's why these processes are so important, to make sure that we've got checks and balances along the way. But hey, when we're not doing this all the time, how are we supposed to know this, right? And even when we do this all the time, we fall victim to it's going to be okay, or I know this person, right?
Mm-hmm. We'd
So,
actually built two other properties before that. And so I think we just got a little bit complacent, and it
mhm,
was a builder that we weren't familiar with. And it was a mistake all around, but I'm
yep.
glad we were able to deal with it.
Yeah, and overcome and leaning back on the equity in the portfolio, being able to hold this asset and in turn selling it as well too. So that's awesome, and credit for taking the risk, because that's how we learn. That's how we build the foundation.
Yep.
Even though sometimes we have to rebuild the foundation, you can't do it without taking the risk and taking action, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Mindset matters.
Yeah.
And not everything's going to go perfect, but you learn a lot, and you also usually in the end you succeed.
Yeah. Persistence. Persistence and resilience.
Right?
We will prevail. Yes.
That's in anything, really.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So learning these lessons for the first time, second time, third time, we've got to step out and take action, get comfortable being uncomfortable. What advice do you have for maybe a physician that's listening who wants to buy their first short-term rental, but maybe they feel overwhelmed by the Airbnb guru hype out there right now?
Oh man, there is a lot of stuff going on out there. But I think the main thing is to understand what is involved with a short-term rental. It is not necessarily all just passive income. It does take work. And if you understand the main metrics in order to figure out what will be a most successful short-term rental, then you're going to be money ahead. I mean, there's just do not listen to all the hype, and do not get emotionally involved in something where it's like, I have to have that house. Because when you do that, then you might overlook some of those red flags that are really there to help you find the right place. So, but I think also there's some really good information out there that you can find that's just available to you, or you can also look for mentors and people who will help you through that. And even Eric has built a video course. It's called STR in an Hour. It's a 59-minute video course, and basically it goes for A to Z about short-term rentals. Just a really quick summary, but it's kind of what we send to people when they're like, we want to pick your brain. And it's just like, well, okay. It's hard to in a nutshell say these are the most important things, because it's just a lot. And so we hesitate to talk too much about it, or just for a little short snippet, because we don't want to mislead people into thinking, oh, it's just this one simple thing and then that's it. But it's a lot.
So where can the listeners find this, and who is it for? Like, who is this STR in an Hour course for? Where can they find it?
Okay, mainly it's for people who are interested in that kind of niche of real estate, but don't exactly know what is involved in how to determine where or why or how much would be a good purchase for that person. And you can actually see it on our on our Instagram account. It's in the bio, and so it's there. There's a link there for that. That it's really for beginners to understand kind of a general overall summary of what vacation rentals are all about.
Very nice. And that's Winning with REI. That's the Instagram handle,
Yep.
WINNINGWITHREI for the listeners out there. Winning with REI. So where does that lead us now? I mean, what does life look like now that your medicine is per diem and real estate is your financial backbone? Tell us a little bit about your life.
Well, I think the great thing about it is just that I have the freedom to be able to set my own hours. And, there's always some limitations in that. No matter, you can't always just be, oh, I'm just not going to work at all. For me, and actually I enjoy doing medicine. So the reason why I did it was not to necessarily quit my job. So I just wanted to be able to keep going and not burn out, because I still enjoy it. I enjoy going to the operating room, and I enjoy helping someone deliver their baby, and I enjoy doing those things, but I just don't like doing it at 2:00 in the morning. Mm-hmm. So now I don't I'm not on call. I have daily hours, usually between 7 and 4 o'clock. And then I just say which days I'm available. And then they let me know if those days are the days that they need me. And then on the other days, I actually can enjoy, going out and exercising, going on vacation, and just being able to do things that I've want to do without having to be limited to always having to go to work.
Yeah.
And that's what I am thankful for. Like just yesterday, we actually went to Grand Lake and we actually did some work on the property because we were doing, basically a deep clean. So I was cleaning carpets, nothing that exciting, but I didn't have to pay someone $1,400 to do that either. Mm-hmm. So, and then this weekend, I'm going to be going out of town. We're going to be going to a conference, and I'm going to also be visiting my daughter. And so it's nice to have the flexibility.
Yeah. And before we came on, the virtual green room, we call it, that I'm so excited about your guys' story because you're crazy just like us. We are hands-on out there doing this stuff. And I've watched on your Instagram, you guys assembling a sauna or putting together bunk beds. And it's not that you have to. That's the thing. It's because you want to, right? Even though you could have paid somebody $1,400 to clean that carpet. It doesn't mean that you had to. It doesn't mean that you had to go figure. You could. It's your choice, and that's what I love. Yeah. Like living this by design and doing things that you enjoy doing, especially when you're doing it with a partner, because that's so cool. And getting to share that passion and spend time together by choice, not by force. Yep. That's really cool. How do you define enough? Like, what's your advice for doctors who are still caught in the work more equals earn more cycle?
Oh man, it is so hard to get that balance. And I think that it's so important to realize you're going to have plenty of money. No matter what you're doing. If you're a highly paid professional, you're making money. You're going to have enough by the time you're done. But you just have to figure out that balance now, because someday you're not going to have the opportunities that you have in terms of your health and in terms of your ability to do things with people that you love. And it's just important to take that time. I read recently a book by Bill Perkins, Die with Zero, and it really hit hard. Just that, there are certain times in your life where you can do things, and then there will be certain times when you're not just going to be able to do that anymore. And, it's important to understand what your future goals are and how that plays into what you're doing now. And, sometimes it's a little sobering. I mean, you just have a limited amount of time, and you just have to figure out where to spend that time. Yeah. And everybody has that opportunity.
Yeah. It's so important too. Like sometimes I get overwhelmed when I lose trust or faith in God. I get like overwhelmed sometimes. I'll be like, oh my goodness, is this or is this? Because sometimes it feels like the whole world could unravel in just one little instance. But in those moments, Gelerie, what I fear is like, oh my goodness, have I spent that time with my children? Because you don't get that back. They're only small, you listen back to videos and you hear those cute little voices and the way they talk. And then I like this instant loss in trust or in faith of what I've done at this point is that have I spent enough time with them? So I love that advice of living every single day with that mentality, right? Being focused, being present, being in the moment and what matters most to you and your values and your family. That's so important. Mm-hmm. So what's next? What's next for you personally or professionally?
Well, professionally, I said I don't want to work forever, and I'm just trying to figure out when is that time? When is the time where I'm going to actually retire? And now I kind of feel like I'm in a sweet spot where I feel like I'm not burning out, and so I can kind of work indefinitely 2 or 3 days a week. And so that's excellent. Personally, I just want to spend more time with family and, focus on friends and be able to just maybe travel more. It's, it's still new to me, this being able to be financially independent and having that flexibility, because I just went per diem in 2024. So I'm still trying to figure out what this means to me and where we go from here. As in terms of professionally, with also the business of real estate, it's tough out there. It's looking kind of crazy. And at the same time, the stock market isn't looking so well either, and it's very chaotic. And so I'm thankful that I'm diversified, and I'm always looking for opportunities for more investing, but I'm not really sure where that's going to go. So, but we've been pivoting here and there all through our lives, and so I figure, just got to keep my eyes open and see what's out there and what the opportunities are, and then to go for it.
Yeah. Don't ever forget about the equity in relationships. And when things are pivoting, markets are different, houses, maybe a challenge, the equity that we build in relationship will carry us through all of those pieces. And sometimes can offer opportunities that may have been in front of you the whole time. The beautiful pivot. What is one thing that you could tell somebody who may be 15 years earlier in their journey in medicine, in real estate, investing, in family, in life? What's one thing that you know now that you wish you would have known back then? Not to change where you're at, Gelerie, but just to give that person who's listening, who does have that 15 years to go, to plan, to take action.
I think the most important thing is to recognize when it's time to pivot. And it's really a mindset thing. And it's hard when you're in a situation where you may not be happy with where you are in work or what's going on with that or personally. But if you are willing to make a change, if you're willing to work on that and explore other opportunities, explore the things that may be risky, but yet at the same time may be beneficial for you, there's a cost benefit there. And if there's something that can make a change in your life that will benefit you later, then even though it is a risk, then it's worth taking. And it's hard sometimes when you feel like you're stuck in a wheel that just won't, you can't see a way out, but there's always a way out. You can always change. It may be hard, but you can do it.
Yeah. Taking the risk is important. Being present in the moment is important. Learning from mistakes, leaning on others, pivoting. Such great advice through the years of experience of tears and fears, and not all sunshine and beers, right? How do you like that line?
It's good.
There's so much to gain through this. And the listeners can find you at Winning with REI on Instagram, WINNING, WITHREI. You've got some really fun content on there. Obviously, Eric doing what he's doing, that's cool to get the video and the content up, but to follow along with you guys and see what you're doing, because now we can hear what you're doing, but to see what you're doing on a daily basis is so cool, because I want those seeds to be planted for the listeners. I want them to see you guys putting up the sauna together because you want to, enjoying those moments that may be, it may be kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, I get into it, I want to be done with it. But when you look back, like we were talking about with the children, enjoying where you're at, being present in the moment,
that's right.
Those are the pieces. Sharing that with your family is so remarkable. So, Gelerie, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thanks so much, Brett, for having me. I appreciate it.
Now that was packed with gold. Gelerie reminded us that financial freedom isn't just about cash flow. It's about mindset, making pivots, and designing a life that gives you time back with the people you love. That's so important. Being present and taking action. Express that so much, so many times in so many episodes. But thank you for giving us a listen. Take a look at the Instagram account. You can catch up with Gelerie. You can find her at winningwithrei.com. So cool to see their journey on there, what they're doing with their rentals, and just another gratitude from me to you is your time and, more importantly, your attention. This is the Real Estate Mogul MD.